Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a very exciting time. We've come all the way to Austin, Minnesota, where we are going to, you guessed it, the Spam Museum. This is going to be a free attraction that you can come and visit that has a lot of interesting things. They handed us this little guide when we came in to tell us about the layout of the location, but there is so much here. We're going to go through an international gallery. We're going to learn about how it's made, what's going on with it, and we're going to cap off our adventure here at the Spam shop to see if we can't find a Spam patch. If you have ever in your entirety of your life eaten Spam before, this one is for you. Before we get too far though, I just wanted to have an honorable mention for the Hormel chili couch, which was used as a prop on the ESPN game day commercials for the Eagles versus the Chiefs matchup. Now I think before we get into the meat of this, or the Spam rather, I think we should talk about the conveyor belt that is the hidden gem in the room. It's 390 feet long. It includes 20 different kinds of Spam. It has a rotation that is completed in 18 minutes and it holds 780 cans overall. A little fun fact. But now we're going to move into the main gallery here, which has lots of different interactive elements. That's one of the best things about this particular location is there's tons and tons of interaction. Apparently there's a lot to learn about Spam, so let's find out. We have that J.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit was born the same year as Spam. So was the Golden Gate Bridge. So was the first issue of the Detective Comics. And then as we keep going, Spam products are available in varieties including hot and spicy, black pepper, jalapeno, and it goes on and on. There's tons of facts here. In fact, hang on, wait. Spam cans have been used to make rocket ships, holiday tree decorations, musical instruments. Again, there's tons of varieties of activities though. They have touch screens, they have games that you can play, they have blocks that you can stack. Collie's over here doing another touch screen thing. They even have some that rotate. This is a super interactive location, and so people of all ages can have fun here. They definitely have something for everyone. Okay, so on this one, we get to rotate everything, put it in order so we can see the bigger picture. Oh no, it moves. Okay, here we go. I think this is a Spam sandwich of some kind that we're making. I think it is. Oh, yep. We're making a Spam sandwich. According to the Spam Tower of Facts, Spam was first introduced in 1937. And here you can find some of those varieties as we go along and find some of the other Spam memorabilia, such as race cars. We have a little Spam pig. And we also learned that the Spam Jam Festival is one of Hawaii's largest festivals every year. Now, I just finished up the Spam exam. I did very poorly, but at the same time, it was super fun. Collie is over here with a different touch screen. So you can see that this entire section is just filled with interaction like we were mentioning. And we can find out also that there are over 10 Spam varieties overall. Wow. Now, potentially one of the best things about this is through these interactions, you can find different things, including recipes. And so as you're exploring around, you can go in and find different kinds. This man right here is walking around with a tray of little tasty treats. We have the light Spam, so Collie and I are both trying that out. How was it, Collie?
It's actually pretty good.
So light Spam, here we go. I wasn't expecting this at all, so this is gonna be fun. This one doesn't appear to be as salt rich as some of the other ones are, which makes it actually better. Here it is right here. Apparently this one is less sodium. It's also less calories and less fat. So not only is the museum itself free, but they also give you free samples, which is wild. Was not expecting that at all. We're about to dive into our first actual gallery while we're here. Okay, we are going into the global marketplace, and as soon as we enter, it is really neat in here. There's some cool signage. It tells us to come and celebrate Spam all around the world. And so as we're going around, we're going to see all the different countries that they have displays of that are going to show us how that they celebrate Spam and how it is used in their country. Oh my goodness, this is awesome. Oh, this is so cool. This is so much more than I was expecting. I didn't know exactly what this section was going to be, but seeing it in person is so neat. There's lots of photo opportunities. You can walk into each country of origin and they have it set up as though it is from that country. You can find little items, and the TV screens in each of these show you how it's advertised and also some of the things that they make there. Starting off, we have the Spam Shack with Mr. Spam. Absolutely the cutest mascot ever. Entering into Japan, we have 4 dishes that have been prepared for us. And we have an audio screen that apparently if we push this button over here, will tell us a little bit more. Let's see what we have though first. This looks like, oh my gosh, these are so cute. I love how they make these little boxes abroad. These are the cutest things where they really put a lot of effort into production of a meal. It's very nice. Also, we have what looks like some veg with some Spam. We have Spam, avocado, egg, and toast. And then these looks like some Spam sushi of sorts. Of course, this is quite fun. This is an entire program dedicated to Spam. It goes on to tell us a little bit more about Japan in general. It says Spam was introduced to Japan following World War II, and it gained popularity outside of the mainland as well as the other islands in the Pacific. And during the launch of Spam into the mainland of Japan's markets, the Spammy character, which is the character we just saw, was introduced in 2010. And it was very interesting because they used these cook it as you want TV commercials, and they stole the hearts of all the children and the moms. As we enter in the Philippines, we learned that it was also introduced here after World War II, and they have the Tocino variety, which was created for the Philippines. What is traditionally marinated, and it's either chicken, beef, or pork, and it's eaten with eggs. Now on this touch screen, we can also hear by touching the button below. These ads are quite interesting, very different than how we see them here in the States, that's for sure. I'm just giving you kind of an overview because we have a lot of museum to go, and I think that takes us to our next location, which is right next to this one, which happens to be, I believe, Latin America. Now, as we move into Latin America, we learn that over 12 different varieties of Spam products are sold in over 20 countries between Mexico, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. And Panama is actually the country that consumes the most. But I like that around the location, they actually tell you different measurements based in Spam, including this one about the US-Mexican border. That is super funny. In each one of the country booths, you see what is the popular kind of Spam in that country. And they are definitely different than the ones that we have here. So maybe at some point we'll find some of these. They also have Spam spread, which I haven't seen either here. And they have a recipe for Spam guisado con arroz, which is basically Spam and rice right here. It tells you what to use to make that dish. But you can see some of the other traditional Latin American dishes using Spam. Another great one. We're not finished yet though. We have a few more countries, so let's keep moving. Okay, clearly Hawaii is part of the United States, but they have their very own section here because Hawaii is known for their Spam, so much so that it deserves its own space. In fact, there are more products than any other state consumed in Hawaii of Spam. 8 million plus cans a year. Now in 2026, the Spam Jam will be held in Waikiki. So if you happen to be in the Hawaii area and you want to check out something really cool, you want to taste Spam in a lot of different manipulations, you need to look into that for sure. Believe it or not, they actually have their own branding on the cans. And Spam products are sold all over the islands. They can be found in grocery stores, also 7-Eleven, McDonald's, and even Burger King. Inside this booth, you can find many of the pictures from various places around Hawaii, including the Spam Jam, and I think that's also really neat. And again, we have another video here. All of these have audio that you can hover over with your hand and these little touches. This is so nice that it's so interactive. But now let's take it across the pond a bit. We are going to the Flying Pig. It looks like a small tavern. A small, beautiful tavern that in fact has pickled eggs, toad in the hole, and Spam fritters with mushy peas. And even we can play a Spam-a-lot game, which is kind of cute. We learned that the British often refer to Spam products as the meat that won the war. And as we're looking around all of this display, you can see how it is one of UK's signature dishes, Spam fritters. They like Spam so much that it was used in one of the most popular of all time UK productions, Monty Python. And it became such a big deal that it's been now featured all over the world. It's kind of like Angry Birds. Okay, we're gonna try out the newest one. This is Korean inspired. Oh, look at that, guys. This one smells delightful. This one actually has a really delicious smell to it. Oh, wow. That one's very different, definitely. I think the nice thing about it is there's so many different varieties. So as you're moving around, you get to taste different flavors. The light one, again, I'm not a huge Spam fan, but that one was delicious. This one had a lot of flavor to it, and when it's fried up the way that it was fried, perfect. It has a little bit of heat to it, but nothing too bad. A pretzel for a palate cleanser. In between our bites, we're now moving into South Korea, and South Korea has some interesting ways that you can cook up some Spam. A wok here with the Spam inside sizzling there, and then we can see also some of the different cans that they have used. Some of these are smaller cans, more serving size specific, but did you know that they have Spam classic fried rice and kimchi fried rice? Pretty neat. Pretty neat to learn. Now, as we continue to look around the South Korean booth, we learned that it was introduced during the Korean War by the U.S. Army. And by 1987, the corporation, which is the leading company in South Korea, began making Spam products under their license also. They also have these Spam branded gift sets that are given to family and friends during 2 Korean holidays, Thanksgiving and Lunar New Year. Okay, I hate to say this, but are they making a Spam fan of me? Like, potentially, realistically. Maybe I'm just not having it served correctly. Our next section is China, and we learn here that it was introduced to China in 2009, and they have actually a lot of products that are now manufactured in China, but they didn't start manufacturing in China until 2017. One of the things that I learned here as we're kind of looking around is the people of China actually describe the taste of Spam as a meaty, juicy satisfaction. And you can see here they have some special things as well. Although the light seems to be popping up in various forms from country to country as one of the main staples. Each one of these booths has a little bit about the country that we're visiting, of course, and some of them have more information about the country itself, and some of them have more about the commercials. Also, I found this to be really interesting. Skippy is on here. Not just Spam, but Skippy. The last thing in this display section is, in fact, touch to explore Spam products around the world. So let's find out what happens here whenever we touch this. Oh, wow. So each country has a little pin in it, and you can go and visit that country. Let's go over here to Australia. We didn't see an Australian booth, so I'd be curious to see what they have. And as we click on it, it shows us Australia has the brand that was introduced in the 1960s. It was popular amongst the immigrants from the UK and continues today to be popular with the Asian immigrants. We have now moved out of the countries and we are moving down the history section. The history section is going to be pretty interesting because it's going to introduce us to all of the pieces that have gone into Spam just in general and what has brought it to so many. And we're going to get to see the timeline, and that's going to be really, really fun. We start off here with the Hormel & Co. dried beef. We have the Packers, we have some of the lard. It is fully packed down, and you can see that it is moving through toward what becomes the Hormel Provisions Market. Now, this particular market, the mock-up, is actually a mock-up that is direct from the original Provisions Market. We learned here that there was a butcher shop owned by Anton Frederick. It was one of the best in the area, and they had a customer, George A. Hormel. This particular butcher shop had burned down, and Anton wanted to rebuild it, but he didn't want to have to run it. George then formed a partnership with Frederick's son, and they decided that this was going to be a partnership that would start out that brought us this particular piece. Now, after that piece kind of started off, they went on to need a few other things. So they purchased a slaughterhouse, and they started to do retail provisions at the market, which offered not only meats, but other things that could go with that. They started to offer various items, including sausage. They also had fresh meats, and they had dairy brands. Now, we learned under each and every one of these that different parts of this process turned into places where they would excel. For example, Survival by Sausage mentions that the financial panic of 1893 was brought about, and it drew people from the Midwest to the Hormel Provision Market because they had the savory dry sausage products, and people would pay more for a premium sausage. And so he found that by doing this, he could amplify his wares, so to speak. Now, clean food was very important. They don't want something that's going to spoil in a hurry. Dirty food spoils while you're looking at it, he said, so cleanliness became key to Hormel's success. Also found that by changing the diet of the animals that they were producing from, that they were able to have a better quality overall, which is what started the Hormel brand to being the brand that we ultimately know it to be today. For example, we can open the drawers here, and as we do, it shows us more of the items, including some of the original advertisements. In this one, we find some of the labels that were used around 1915. Just across from that, we learn about the family business that Hormel started out to be. You can see a timeline of the people and their impact, but also their arrival to the Austin area. In fact, Hormel was the son of a German-born tanner, John G. Hormel, and a nephew of a packing house retailer, Jacob Decker. And George seemed destined to be in the meat industry from the very beginning. It mentions here that from the very beginning, his goal was to provide customers with quality meat. And we learned a little bit more about that when we were looking at the storefront, about the cleanliness and also the things that the animals would basically eat. But also, he had a few other ideas. He wanted to vacuum seal the cans that things were delivered in. He wanted to cool foods and also have them where he could have them in coolers like these to keep them preserved longer as opposed to having them out in the open. And because of that, he created what is called the healthy heritage, which means that things were stored in cooler environments that were more conducive to lasting longer. The vacuum packaging would help it to not spoil, and they would ultimately have better overall preservation. See, unlike other brands of the time, he had a vision far beyond what they were currently doing. Whenever they would have a butcher come in and butcher something, it would just sit until it would be no more. So they would have to have a lower quality, but also a lower quantity of items. However, he was able to capitalize on having a larger volume and thus being able to move it to more places by thinking ahead of the curve, by using these kinds of things. And in doing so, he was able to really create some lasting brands, which we still know today. For example, the lasting ham. A cured ham kept longer than a fresh one, and if one was canned, it could last almost indefinitely. They also had some other unique ideas. In fact, the Dinty More, the merrier, had a challenge. 500,000 empty cans, and the solution was to create a new product to fill those cans. When the federal government abruptly halted the Depression-era program to aid livestock farmers, they needed to do something with over 500,000 cans, and they needed to fill those with something that would be easier to create and also preserve. So they started to look for options, and that is whenever they came up with Dinty More. But they weren't finished there. They just kept on going. They kept adding to the brand, and at some point they decided that they were going to go into the chili business also, which kind of reminds us of the couch out there with chili. Chili con carne was an ethnic offering to most Americans, and it wasn't something that most Americans were familiar with at the time, despite its popularity now. And so he brought this to market in 1935. It had a combination of solid taste, a lot of research, a lot of creativity, and then also they had to use a lot of different public relations to pass this over as something that people would be interested in. And then entered Spam. They had already mastered cooking meat, putting it in a can, but they needed to find something that they could use that was a bit more tasty, flavorful, that could be manipulated differently. And they wanted to find a use for pork shoulder. And it was harder to remove the bone from this, so they found that they needed to find a way to use all of those things so that they would have less waste. It mentions here that this is where the luncheon meat actually began, was trying to make the most out of that odd shape of meat. And so they could be cut easily and put on a slice of bread if they were able to do this, and they could be cut down so that people could have more accessibility to it. Now, the original can was using a key to open it because it was kind of a strange can, so it didn't work as well with the traditional can opener, but they used that for over 50 years before changing that design. And you can see here a timeline which goes around this particular room, telling us a little bit more about each of the sections that we just stopped in. Moving past that portion of the timeline, we move into this section where we get into a post-war America, and the Hormel girls were introduced. The Hormel girls would come around, and they were a singing sensation that would bring extravagant musicals and sales tropes to different areas. Which moves us into the World War II section, where we learn that many in the International Gallery were first introduced to Spam for the first time. Into Spam, Hormel in general had a big boom during the war because more people were introduced to these products because they were cheaper, they were also tasty, and they even had contracts, I believe, with the government, which is why they moved into different areas around the world. And so that's a pretty neat accomplishment. But this section is going to tell us a little bit more about that, so let's get moving. In fact, here we learn in 1942, it saw the introduction of the first military K ration. And many of those meals were using Hormel foods for the rations. And that included pork with apple flakes, carrots, veal loaves, chopped pork, egg yolks, ham and eggs. And 4 years later, only 4 years later, the introduction of Spam became synonymous with military cuisine. Ooh, I would like to try the jalapeno, please. Thank you. Okay, jalapeno, here we go. It is a little jalapeno-y, not too jalapeno-y. This one's a little bit more salty than the last one. It is good. Little bites of happiness. So since we just lend a hand for helping feed families, apparently that is just part of what would happen. In fact, here, more than 100 million pounds of Spam luncheon meat was among the shipments that was going out during the time of the war, so in the 1940s. And citizens and their leaders, such as Russians as well as Great Britain citizens, were using this, and they were expressing their loyalty towards Spam after this by continuing to consume it even after the war. Okay, in this section we get to hoist this huge container of Spam to help feed the Allies during World War II. Let's see if I can do it. Oh, it's pretty heavy. Oh. Okay, that's as far as it goes. Wow, that's not a light can of Spam. Inside this section, we also have some other interesting things, including this 1945 Willie Jeep. And this was one of the most significant Jeeps that was designed. It was designed specifically for the military engagement, so you can find that.
Years. I don't know how much more Spam I can take. I mean, Jim, and he's the camp piston. Since back in World War I, it's mostly dry biscuit, or else nothing at all.
We learn here that the Hormel Food Company has always been intertwined with patriotism, and through every major conflict, they have always been right there by the side of the military and trying to be a part of the solution. In fact, you can see each one of the conflicts that they have helped out with through their food service and the various items that they have. Oh, wow. So the conveyor belt comes through here too. It's everywhere, guys. But in addition, we are in the factory and we learn how Spam is actually made here. They have a 6-step process for how it is made. This is pretty simplified, but it does let you know kind of how this happens. And then you can kind of move over to this wall where Kali is and find some Spam facts. Okay, that took me about 23 seconds to do that because I got hung up on the sleeve over here. It says how many cans did the Austin plant produce in the same amount of time. I think I have to try this again. I think I can be faster. Okay, it was definitely faster, 14 seconds. They did 98 still. I still am not as good as they are. Kali's over here trying it out too. Oh my goodness. Here she goes. Here she goes. She's about to put it in the oven. We did make a mistake though. We didn't put on our proper safety equipment, so oopsies. Yeah, right here. You can find your hats, you can find jackets, and you can also find some sanitizer for after. Okay, so Kali and I also went to this next section where it tells you to flip the can. It tells you how to read what is on the bottom of the can based on all of this. This is really neat because it tells you which plant that it came from. It tells you what kind it is, when it should be used, the military time, and then also a timestamp of whenever it was created. That is neat. Did you know that the Spam products run about 400 feet per minute and 4.5 miles per hour? Overall, that's a lot of cans of Spam. So for us to be able to see this and do this, it was really fun, but at the same time learning that, you know, we weren't near as fast as their production line, but you know, we're just regular everyday people learning. It was fun. I can also find out how many cans of Spam I am tall. Yes, please. So this could be interesting. Let's see, I am a little bit over 20, so I'm like 21 cans of Spam tall. This right here is Sir Canalot. He's a character that was introduced in 2012 for the 75th anniversary, and he actually has a fire-breathing iguana that is his steed. It's pretty interesting. Now, he is a tiny knight. He's only about 3 inches tall. He's the size of an egg, but he embodies Spam, and he's a part of pop culture now. This is a very interesting display. It says, love can be in the air, but for some lucky couples, it can come in a can. And in fact, for close to 100 years, the makers of the Spam brand have been filling tummies and putting smiles on people's faces, but apparently they're also matchmakers. There are 4 couples here who have very interesting Spam related stories, and it is just really cute, so you have to check these out. Earlier we spoke about Monty Python. Here you can find Spamalot, which is a musical lovingly riffed off from the motion picture Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and it's pretty fun because it talks about how Spam has also influenced many pieces of American culture, but the skit of Monty Python's Flying Circus is linked to the term spam email, and that's where it originated. And also, they accidentally posted the same message around 200 times in a group, and that's what created spam. Now, in addition to the spam couples, we also have spam superfans, and they have everything from a spam family who they are longtime restaurateurs and they feature fun spam dishes on their menus, to this, which is a spam parking lot space. And this was signature and designed in a senior parking place, which is kind of fun. Now in this section, they do have a really cute little play place. We're not gonna go in there because we're over 48 inches tall, but it's super fun. I had to show you guys. Okay, he came around with hot and spicy now, so we're gonna take another taste. This one doesn't smell peppery or anything, so it should be fine. That one definitely has a little bit more spice to it than the jalapeno. I like the spice level of this one. This one does linger with you a little bit more than the jalapeno too, though. Earlier we learned that they've used spam in a variety of ways to make musical instruments, and here they have a few can instruments, so canstruments as they call them. Wow, even whenever you look up, there's stuff everywhere. So we have a spatula creating an epic spam sandwich. Of course, the conveyor belt runs all throughout, but you can also find posters when you look up from all over the place. And then when we look down, we find the very first bacon-fueled motorcycle. Wow, I didn't even know that was a thing, but it's a Ducati body. It has a 3-cylinder Mercedes engine in here. It is fueled by Black Label Bacon biodiesel from Black Label and Hormel. This is absolutely incredible. It just shows that innovation can come in many forms. Leads us to our next set of displays where it talks about innovation a bit more, and it inspires you to think outside of the can or the box, so to speak. Here you can find about how they innovate here at Hormel, and also how that they have created some of the flavors that we've been trying today. And it even gives you an option back here where you can create your own product. I think that that's really neat. Here we learn a bit more about Hormel Foods and all the brands that fall under that umbrella, including Jenny O and Chi-Chi's. They have Holy Guacamole here, they have Applegate, they have several others. But overall, the Hormel Corporation employs more than 20,000 people worldwide, and they have over 75 countries where they sell their items. And with this being an absolutely free attraction, I like the fact that they've walked us through the various countries of origin, the places that we can find the products, the flavors that we can try. It's a very encompassing experience overall. I bet you guys thought whenever I said Spam Museum that we were just going to go into some place and be like, oh, the can was invented here. No. This is a fully engulfing experience. We've been here over an hour and a half, just walking through, probably closer to 2 hours, just playing, learning, enjoying, tasting, smelling, feeling, touching, and it has been absolutely incredible. But another nice thing that they have shared educationally with us is that change is possible through this Project Spammy vision, and this is something that they are really working to help thousands of children and their families benefit from. In fact, they have opened 25 learning centers in Guatemala. They have more than 2 million pouches of Spammy that are donated annually, and more than 26 million pouches of Spammy have been donated since the program began, helping to feed children that might not have. And so places like this are important because we not only learn about the amazing things we enjoy, but also how these brands are helping out other people. And I think that that is the bigger picture. If you have the ability to do so, if you've built the company, you should make change. Okay, they do not have patches today, but they did have this new flavor that we tried. This is it. It is delightful. I'm getting this and I'm going to try it in the air fryer. They said that this is available here or it is available at Costco. So if you see this one, try it out because, again, super, super yummy. Okay, I came to the Spam Museum with an open mind, and I am leaving with a can of Spam that I'm so excited about. It should be absolutely delicious. This was fun, and it was absolutely free, minus me buying the can of Spam. But they have Spam cutters, they have all sorts of cool Spam merch. If you ever liked Spam ever in your life, you have to come here at least once. This is a treat. Remember, guys, we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time. I'll see you next time. Bye.